Hi, everyone. We are back. We are back to talk with you. And Dr. Amen and I did some tech checks at the back, and we're hoping that you'll come back as he is trying to join us. And we're so excited to talk to you in the Brain Food series, both about my book, which was launched last week, as well as any questions you all might have, and a wonderful conversation with just a wonderful doctor. So I hope you will join us and see us talk. Hope everyone is thinking about what they're going to have for dinner, or you may have eaten your dinner already, and making some really good brain food choices. Would love to hear what everyone is having, tasting, avoiding, embracing in terms of our food list from the book. We like you to think about, foods to include, the ones that don't help us with our mental health. So all of that ends up being, I hope, useful to you in how you plan your meals. I see people streaming in, and let's see if we can get Dr. Amen in there. Awesome. Hi, Dr. Amen.
Hello.
How are you?
How are you?
I'm wonderful. It's so good to see you.
Well,
Firstly, it's just an honor to have you
this thing out.
It's this new tech world, I'm such a menace on Instagram, but we had some background tech issues and we worked it out. I think it must be because we're eating our good brain food, Dr. Amen. That must be it.
Must be it.
How have you been? I thank you for supporting this brain food series, which I actually launched as we launched my book last week, and I really wanted to get some sense from you. I had a few questions that I thought you could help us with. I've long admired and followed your work and read the research that you've done. And one of the things I find people are often saying to me is, the nutrition suggestions that many of us make seem basic. And I wanted to break that down in terms of sugar and the brain a little bit, because I feel that people don't often make the connection, as you and I have talked about before, between the actual food and what it does to the brain. So, for example, people eat a sugary treat and they feel great and they think, well, I feel good. Why is that a bad thing? And they don't necessarily understand the brain science. And I wondered if you could break that down a little bit for us.
I published a study last week on 35,000 scans.
That's amazing.
And it was pretty impressive. As your weight goes up, the function of your brain goes down, virtually every area of the brain. And the problem with sugar is it basically has no nutrients. All the nutrients are gone. It's addictive. It hits the dopamine centers of the brain, so you really like it.
Right.
In the short run, it does make you feel better, but in the long run, it increases inflammation in your body, and now you're addicted to something that hurts you. And I don't know if you've ever been in a bad relationship, but I have in the past, and now that I'm 66, I'm not doing that. I'm married to a woman I love. She loves me back. And I'm not going to be in an abusive relationship with food.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I think that's
sugar,
a great way to say it.
It gives you this pleasure, but then you get the rebound of pain.
Exactly, and it harms your brain, and I really appreciate what you said, because sometimes people feel that, some of the diets, which is why I don't like using the word diet, or some of the meal plans are too restrictive, or don't have any fun foods. And that's why I talk about a treat day, where people can, focus on something they enjoy once in the week, but then the rest of the week, and I hope it's not always sugar, but the rest of the week that they're eating healthy. I think that there's a way in which, brain science also, well, perhaps one of the things you can talk to us about is the discussion of sort of inflammation and how that affects the brain and mental illness, because it's a theme that runs through my book and discussion of things like anti-inflammatory foods as well as well as, foods that basically you should embrace for better mental health. What are your thoughts, or what do you share with patients and your followers around anti-inflammatory foods, or what are the things that help your brain in that way?
So, like you, I have a new book out called The End of Mental Illness.
I love it.
And in it is a chapter called Food Made Insanely Simple. And it's basically, these things hurt you, lose them, and these things help you, do more of them. Right. And in the book's based around this idea that if you want to keep your brain healthy or rescue it if it's headed to the dark place, you have to prevent or treat the 11 major risk factors that steal your mind. And I have a mnemonic called Bright Minds. And the first I in Bright Minds is inflammation. And inflammation is a major cause of Alzheimer's disease, of depression, and of pain. And sugar feeds that, as do foods that quickly turn to sugar. Bread, pasta, potatoes, and rice as well. And so people go, but that's all I eat. And the fact is, there's about 10,000 other things. And if you can limit or eliminate those things, and then put the colorful fruits and vegetables. So, for example,
eat the rainbow
today, I had a cup of frozen blueberries.
I love it.
And I do that virtually every day. And Costco actually has great, huge, organic frozen blueberries.
I did not know that.
And they're cheap. Like for £3, you can get them for $9.
You get a ton. And people don't often realize that frozen is just as good, because in this country it's flash frozen and organic, wonderful, and you can get that inexpensively and feed your brain. I love it. Love that.
Yeah, and the anthocyanins from blueberries have found actually have cognitive benefits. So I love them. They love me back. This is a good relationship with food.
And I think that's more of what we are asking people to do. I love your new book. The mnemonic that I try to help people with in my book is called Brain Foods, something they can take a photograph of or keep on their phone, so that when they're shopping online on the supermarket or even the farmer's market, that they have a list of the running foods they should be incorporating in their diet. And I think the easier we make it for people, that the healthier that they can really eat and incorporate these plans. And I think that the other part is really around the unhealthy fats and oils, really specifically the processed vegetable oils. That's another thing that I try to work with people, just because of the balance of the omega-6 and the omega-3s. And people don't realize when they eat out or they're eating fried foods or fast foods that it's really the unhealthy fats that build up from the omega-6s. So that's another thing that I like to share with people. Sorry, it sounds like you were going to say something.
Well, I did a study on 50 consecutive patients' Amen clinics. And I'm like a big fan of the omega-3 index. And it tells you basically how much omega-3s you have compared to omega-6s. And it was developed by Bill Harris. It's been well validated. And 49 of them had suboptimal levels if they weren't taking fish oil. And when you have low levels of omega-3 fatty acids, you put your heart at risk and you put your brain at risk. Plus, your hair and your skin are not as healthy. I often say the health of your skin is an outside reflection of the health of your brain. And if you need more motivation to eat well, you're going to be cuter. You're going to be prettier. You're going to look healthier if your omega-3 fatty acids are right. And the vegetable oils, along with corn and soy, and corn and soy are in most processed foods, then you're going to have a poor omega-3 to omega-6 ratio, and that's going to hurt you. And you go, but I love Rocky Road ice cream, but it doesn't love you back. And, you know, I might love, you know, racing in the rain at 125 miles an hour, but is that really the right thing
to do?
Exactly.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I think it's sometimes, you know, some of what I talk about is some pillars of just basic good mental health, because those pillars will fortify you almost during this pandemic even against any developing sort of mood or anxiety symptoms just by eating healthy. So if I would, this is something I'm being asked all the time, but I'd love to get it from a real expert like yourself. If you were to say to someone, there are a couple of healthy foods I want you to start eating today, because so far we've sort of talked about omega-3s and the balance of the bad omega-6s, and we've touched on some other stuff. But what if you were to identify 1 to 3 foods that you would say, start those today? I'd love to get your opinion on that, because people have been asking me a lot, and I think I should ask the real expert.
Well, there's a study from Australia that showed there was a linear correlation with your level of happiness and the number of fruits and vegetables you eat a day.
Yes.
So I would, you know, what's colorful? Red bell peppers, pomegranate seeds, kale, brassicas. So brassicas actually have detoxifying properties. Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower. And so we're all big in my house with cauliflower mashed potatoes or cauliflower rice. And of course, cook them in healthy oils if you use them, or steam them.
Steam them, exactly, or you know, rice them. I like to switch out when I do like Mexican food, which on some nights I'll use riced cauliflower to lighten the amount of rice, or as I get used to it, substitute it entirely. So I'm a big fan of those vegetables. I also appreciate what you're saying, because now there's much more nutritional science behind why we should eat fruits, vegetables, beans, nuts, seeds, legumes, you know, healthier options. Eat the rainbow, you know, and why those colors become so important. I wanted to check in with you because we are at 6:30 and I know you had a hard stop. Are you okay to go on for a few more minutes, or? I
have to stop at 6:40. We can do that. That'd be great.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for doing that for us. I really appreciate it. Those are some awesome and great foods that you suggest to people. Is there a favorite meal that you have, or spices that you add to your meals that you like and feel have better brain health? Because we are big fans of turmeric and saffron and capsaicin and some of those spices, and we break them down in the book, as you know. But I'm curious about your take on that.
So my favorite of the bunch is saffron. Okay. And we actually make something called Happy Saffron. I've been following the research on saffron for about 15 years. There are now 21 randomized controlled trials showing that 30 milligrams of saffron is equivalent to Prozac, Effexor, Zoloft, imipramine, in randomized controlled trials for depression. And as opposed to the SSRIs, which tend to decrease or interfere with sexual function, there's a whole group of studies on saffron improves sexual function and improves desire
it's listed it out.
Okay. And there's a whole group of studies on saffron. There's one study for PMS, but there's several studies for saffron and memory. So if my memory, mood, and sexual function are better, as soon as the pandemic started, I started taking it. Because I sort of knew, okay, we're in for sort of an unusual time.
Right. Exactly.
And I noticed, you know, thinking about food, that I mean, I've been writing about food for more than a decade,
I know.
food in the brain. But I noticed even though my weight didn't go up, my waist got bigger. And that's what happens. Chronic exposure to cortisol. And during the pandemic, my dad died, and I had to close one of my clinics for a couple of weeks because I had an employee with COVID. I mean, it was stressful.
It was very stressful.
And over the last month, I've dropped about 5 pounds and 2 inches off my waist, because what I do is I actually count everything I put in my body, and I have a sense on the calories. A lot of people go, "Oh, calories don't count." They absolutely count. I mean, it's like math.
Yeah, exactly.
And I did that, and I made sure whatever I ate served me, as opposed to, I think of it as calorie amnesia. Oh, well, you ate half of your child's pancakes, but you didn't count it, like it didn't matter. Or,
I really like that. Yeah, I'm going to use that.
And I never drink calories. That's so important. Don't drink
that's a complete
your
waste of
calories.
Yeah.
And when you're under stress, you can give yourself the excuse that I'm going to treat myself, whether it's alcohol, marijuana, or ice cream. Or you can go, I'm under stress, I have to take care of my brain.
Right. Absolutely. You can make that choice. That's a fantastic example, actually. I couldn't agree with you more about calories. And I also feel like one of the things that people get into sort of a habit circuit in the brain is eating those foods during the pandemic, which they've done through emotional eating or stress. And I think that what happened is, for many of my patients, it spiraled out of control. So from going into the pandemic unexpectedly, doing well on a nutritional psychiatry treatment plan, suddenly things got thrown off. And there were lots of cookies in the homes, and part of it was, supermarkets some of the shelves were empty, and people were generally panicking. But you make such an excellent point about the stress, because I think that just, mindfulness and being aware of it and thinking about it like an abusive relationship. Do I want to have an abusive relationship with my body around food? It's no different. And in mental health and in psychiatry, we see that in so many other shapes and forms through trauma. But I want to go back to the saffron, because I love the studies. They're in my book. And saffron showed up in certain chapters, and the two big chapters that it showed up on are depression and libido. And somehow or the other, whenever I'm being interviewed for the media, libido chapter always comes up. So I'm always cutting saffron. Exactly. It's something that people could know about, especially since, a lot of the medications we prescribe have just had such a bad rap in terms of the sexual side effects. Often people talk about the weight gain, and then with the other medications, the metabolics that get thrown off. But, one of the things my patients come to me with is the sexual side effects. So I think it's great to have other options, and to also see when we can implement food as additional healthy plans for them. I love the conversation. I appreciate it so much. And are there any last tips?
So can I ask you one question?
Oh, of course you can. Of course.
So imagine with me that everybody that is depressed, that comes to a psychiatrist, because our profession has changed. And we went from seeing patients an hour a week or 2 hours a week to the 15-minute med check. Yes. And I hate this practice.
I don't like it.
But what if before we got our prescription pad out for depression, we changed people to eat like both you and I talk about, and add the right spices? Yes. What percentage of our depressed people would actually not need an antidepressant?
Well, I think Dr. Amen, that begs for us to study it, and I think we should. The reason is that I'm a big lover of spices. I talk about how when I moved away from South Africa, where I grew up, it was the one thing emotionally that I could bring with me, and actually started to cook that way. But really, throughout my life, the things my grandmother and mother would tell me have now borne out to be true by the science. And so, the turmeric, the saffron, and so many others, I think are so valuable. They're calorie-free, salt-free, easy to add, and a little bottle of organic spice, which you can find in most supermarket aisles these days, will last you a long time. You don't need a ton of it. So I think we should study that. That's my answer back to you, because I don't think we know specifically.
They've done
They've done a ton
fascinating
of
studies in Australia. And the one I just love, they looked at 2 outer islands. One had fast food restaurants, the other didn't. And the island with fast food restaurants, significantly low levels of omega-3 fatty acids and 5 times the level of depression. And I just think, and it's my experience, the nutritionists at Amen clinics have the best testimonials that when we can get people to change their habits around food, they need less medicine.
Exactly.
And I don't work for the pharmaceutical companies, right? We work for our patients. Our patients are the ones that pay us. And nutritional psychiatry, it's why I was so excited to meet you. Nutritional psychiatry should be part of the future of psychiatry.
Well, thank you. I really value that support, because the truth is that not enough people, unlike yourself, who've been incorporating it for years, have written and studied it. But people are not doing it every day. And it's often brushed aside as either soft science, which you and I know is not true. We've talked about that before. We've talked about the studies. Or it's not something that people have the sort of understanding to discuss. So I'm hoping to bring this movement forward through talking to wonderful people like yourself and kind of getting this inspiration and that feedback, specifically about those simple things that many doctors talk about, but in psychiatry, we are not linking enough to the actual brain science and the impact on people and their longevity, their cognition, their depression over time. So I think that's just wonderful. And I will be writing to you to say, I think we should study this or that. I know there are tons of studies that have been done, but I think there's more in this space that I feel needs to be fleshed out a little bit. And part of it is the pharmaceutical industry really takes up a lot of the study dollars around this type of thing. So,
well, we can do better. We will do better. So nice to be with you today.
Thank you so much for your time. Sorry for all the tech glitches. Take good care.
Okay,
bye. Have a good night. Say hi to Tana.